position, knight f6 check would force a queen sacrifice, and with it, the game is pretty much going to come to a conclusion. White will win. Instead, he figures that he has compensation in how much he controls the center. So if you look at a position and you see this one minor piece or no minor piece, then the position is vulnerable to attack. Welcome to ACO Chess. I thought I'd share with you a nice game which I saw this week. It was a game between Carlsen and Duda. Carlsen was playing white and started the game with d4, and they played the Catalan. The Catalan, the idea is obviously to put the bishop on g2, control the long diagonal. And mostly when people play this opening, they're doing it for the positional concept. The game is usually very slow, and if you take on c4, they play something like queen a4 check and recover this pawn, or they play for queen c2, recover this pawn, and play for the long game. Carlsen is a different approach in this particular game, and he plays bishop g2, and after this check plays knight c3, castles, and plays knight c6, a3, bishop e7, goes e4. This is all theory. That's why I'm not spending a lot of time on it. It's been seen before. a6, h4, and b5. b5 is actually in my chess-based book, but it's a little bit suspect. Because it opens this diagonal for black. It's not the end of the world, but it gives Carlsen something to play for. You must appreciate that Carlsen gave up a pawn earlier on when he played, when he allowed d takes c4. So he gave up a pawn here, and he didn't bother trying to recover this pawn. Instead, he figures that he has compensation in how much he controls the center. And after this, h4 here is played to anchor the knight in most of these types of positions. The knight can always jump to g5 and it would be secure. And after b5, e5, knight d5. This is the position I want to actually speak about, because I thought this was actually a very instructive part of the game. They've reached halfway to how long the game is. The game was only 20 moves long. And here, Carlsen has to come up with a plan, because I think the obvious stuff has all been done. If you're playing blitz, it's easy to just automatically play this knight to e4, but this would not be the right idea. The problem is that if you just go knight e4 immediately, he has time to start knight a5, knight b3, putting pressure in the white position, and you won't be able to carry out your plan. So here Carlsen has to think of a plan, and the plan is usually guided by circumstances on the board. Now, in this position, there's only one minor piece on the king side. If you divide the board into two, there's only one minor piece on the king side. In chess, minor pieces are the only valid defenders. The major pieces are terrible defenders. So if you look at a position and you see this one minor piece or no minor piece, then the position is vulnerable to attack. The only question would be, are you able to compile enough attackers into the position? Just for you to understand, the ratio of attackers to defenders should be 3 pieces if there's no defender. So 1 to sacrifice, 2 to checkmate. In this case, it's also very important to define what an attacker is. In chess, an attacker is any piece that can get to the king in 2 moves. So in this position, if we are to look at it, this knight can get to the king in 2 moves. This knight can get to the king in 2 moves. This queen can get to the king in 2 moves. This bishop can get to the king in 2 moves. This makes 4 attackers and 1 defender. So it means in this position, there is an attack. You only need to find how to start. And Carlsen found the right way to do it with knight to g5. Now, of course, black can play h6. There's a dual purpose to the way he plays. If you suddenly take here, bishop takes, yes, you've maybe slowed down the attack, but Now he has a bishop pair, which is a strategic advantage, and you'll be able to make something with that. So Duda realizes this and goes h6. Carlsen just retracts. Okay, moving back is not cool, but he's managed to force black to create a weakness in the position. The pawns have moved. So now Carlsen can now come with queen g4. I don't really understand why he played knight a5 here. It's a terrible idea, because now he's ignoring the fact that there's problems on the king side. So queen goes to g4, king goes to h8, and he goes queen h6. Here, it's very obvious he's threatening to take on h6. And if pawn takes, he's going to take with the queen check, and the other pieces are going to come in. Ideally, this bishop on g2 can come to e4, and it will assist with checkmate. He goes king g8, bishop takes, natural, obviously. Remember, 1 to sacrifice, 2 to deliver mate. And now, if you take, and if you don't do anything, you can just see a scenario where maybe this bishop comes there and it's mate, or this knight comes there and it's mate. So Duda at this point starts an idea, or at least something to curb this attack, which is he starts exchanging pieces that he feels are dangerous, starting with this knight. He wants to take it out. So now, notice you can't really play bishop e4, because of course the knight will just take. You can also sort of attack with knight here, because now you can play queen takes, and when you play knight here to threaten checkmate, he has an annoying move, check, and after king h1, he just takes on e5, and he's defending his whole king side. So you have to take all this into account. So after knight c3, Carlsen calmly takes on c3. And now, how does he deal with this bishop, which wants now to join in with the queen to deliver mate? He simply goes bishop b7. Okay, Carlsen looks at it, and here Carlsen just removes the bishop. But okay, removing the bishop means he is losing an attacker. He wouldn't do this if he didn't have a backup. But I did check that in this position, a knight to f4 would have worked. Because now you don't have queen takes d4. You don't. If you go rook e8 with the idea that after knight h5 you can go bishop f8. Now in this position, knight f6 check would force a queen sacrifice, and with it the game is pretty much going to come to a conclusion. White will win. But Carlsen took and just took all the drama out of it, and after bishop b7, knight b7, he played knight f4. And there's nothing that Duda can do to prevent knight to h5 and mate. A very nice game, very instructive, the kind of stuff that you can learn from and utilize in your own games. Hello and welcome to the Q&A segment of these videos. And I've been listening to what you've been writing to, and I'm going to be adding them more often. So the first question is, can you explain the significance of the Catalan opening and why it's popular among players like Carlsen? Yeah, I think the significance of the Catalan is that it offers a long-term game where there's many small details that weaker players might miss. So someone like Carlsen, who's very good at technical chess, can win games easily because there's a lot of things that an average player would miss. Even grandmasters, lots of grandmasters, as demonstrated by results, would miss in a sophisticated opening like the Catalan. That's why I think it's very popular. Okay, what specific strategic advantage did Carlsen gain by not recovering the pawn on c4? So after Duda took on c4, Carlsen immediately took control of the center. That was the most obvious. And because he had control of the center and an intention to attack on the king side, his pieces were more active. And when he played e5, he divided the board into two. And his pieces were more active on the king side than Duda's. And I think that's the specific advantage that he was really going for.